I guess I should do my own pre-release. I'll make it quick. I don't think there's that much to talk about with these characters besides, like, the negatives. We're here. We're going to try to keep this pretty truncated because there's not much that we haven't already said here. We're doing Wriothesley and Neuvillette pre-release. We're going to do Wriothesley first because I think there's a bit more to talk about. So, Wriothesley presses E, and he does the Yoimiya Wanderer E skill. It enhances his normal attacks. His charge attacks are excluded from this. However, his charge attack does have a buffing mechanic. It gets 50 damage percent when he is below 60% HP, and it restores 30 HP for him. Why does it restore 30 HP for him? Because he constantly is draining his own HP. Every time he does an auto attack, that is enhanced by his elemental skill. This is potentially very problematic and potentially very inconsistent, and pretty directly breaks his synergy with shielders. If your team has no healing, it seems like Wriothesley will not be doing great, especially with the current enemies that they've been adding to these abysses being more and more aggressive and doing more and more damage to you. If you've played current Floor 12 second half, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you, Dendro Grenadier robot enemy. Thank you very much. And the Cope Duo partner shooting wind lasers at you from across the map behind you. Very fun and interactive mechanics. But anyway, besides that, TLDR, here's a lot of his combo stuff. All of these are possible with no attack speed. The problem is they get really restricted by the HP drain. So you, despite being able to do N5, N4C, by the way, to do that, you have to dash cancel the N5 and the charged attack, which is easy to do, but it is definitely something to mention. He does appreciate having his N5 dash canceled and his charged attack dash canceled. Yeah, despite this being a possible combo, you're gonna need to do this. And this is for first rotation. What I have heard going around for second rotation is that you're going to want to N5C, N5, N3C, N5. And then you can loop that. Subsequently, is the combo that you will be doing. If you have C1, you're going to do N5C. There's no reason to do anything but N5C if you have C1. The way his C1 works, whenever you do an N5, he gets a special charge attack. The charge attack also gets 200 damage bonus instead of 50%, which is also a nice little boost. It's actually fun for Shenhe. And that isn't fully HP positive combo by like 2%. So that's fun. If you were wondering because of that, or because I mentioned it, C1 is roughly a 16% damage increase. 10% damage increase. C2 is 16%. C3 is his normal attack. C4 increases his healing, gives him a small amount of attack speed. C5 is his burst. C6 is whenever he does a charge attack, he does the second charge attack. Regarding team options, I really was hoping for mono cryo teams to stand out, but because they intentionally kind of ruined his synergy with Layla, they become a lot more problematic and unrecommendable. I was really hoping this would be the one, but it's just not going to happen. So for on release, you're going to mostly be looking at melt comps, either with Xiangling or with burning. Or if you do want to use cryo comps, the only real beneficial healer option for him is Mika right now. If you do play Mika, you're going to want to do N5, N5C, N5, N5C. If your HP never touches 60%, don't do the charge attack, just do some extra normal attacks instead. It's okay. I wish you could use Layla, because Layla would be significantly better. That's life, I guess. Regarding weapon options, you're going to be, of course, looking at Cash Flow, Tolotolo's Remembrance, Widsith, Lost Prayer, and free-to-play weapon, the event weapon, Ballad of the Boundless Blue, which will be from the event next patch. It's quite good. I recommend it. It's about as good as an R1 Widsith. Actually, I believe it's about as good as an R3 Widsith. Yeah, R3 Widsith. What excites me about Wriothesley is that he is the first cryo melee character. Shockingly, 3 years into Genshin Impact, he's the first real cryo melee character. He is the only one that has real synergy with Xingqiu, Yelan, and the similar lot. Wouldn't Kokomi be better than Mika? Not necessarily. His uptime is a bit longer than TTS will last, but you definitely could. Regarding melt stuff, he actually has good synergy with Toma. He does not apply much cryo. So to set up 4 melts, this is assuming you have a healer and the HP drain becomes a non-issue. You're going to want to do a combo called N2E, N5, 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 N5. If you're not able to do the final N5, you don't have to do N2E, you can do N1E then. The N2E is just to give you barely enough time to squeeze in that final N5. So if you find that too difficult, it's okay to not do it. But you do want to N1E. What doing N1E does, his E skill does not reset his combo string, and by doing this, you are aligning his ICD reset timer, so he is reacting every N3 and N5 with basically absolute consistency in single target. When there are multiple enemies, don't really worry about it. You're not really going to be able to control what enemy you're hitting anyway. Regarding teammates, Shenhe is quite good. 15 damage bonus, some shred, and the 7 quills. Quite nice. If you do want to separate Wriothesley's burst from his melee skill, from his elemental melee skill, you can use Shenhe Tappy and then offload all 5 of those quills with just Wriothesley's burst, which is quite nice. So that can cause some rotations to flex into longer rotations much more easily, making them quite good. Do any of his attacks have AoE? All of his attacks have AoE. There are very few actually single target things in this game. For reference, his AoE is about the size of Diluc's elemental skill. Hit 2, I think. No, hit 1. Except instead of length, they're a bit wider. Real. Other major synergy I'll mention is Kazuha. Kazuha doesn't really need to be mentioned. Something I will talk about with Kazuha and is a difficulty in Kazuha Bennett teams where you want to swirl cryo. Cryo swirls with these setups are very difficult. It is possible. It's just very difficult and not really something I would recommend. As a whole, I consider it unrecommendable. But technically, it's good. Okay, now that we're talking about Neuvillette, Neuvillette is pretty fun. He generates balls with his elemental skill and his burst. When he tries to do a charge attack, he will try to eat the balls, gobble them up. Heard it here first, Neuvillette, ball gobbler. A real goblin, he's fiending for those balls. It is 3 balls generated from his E skill and 6 balls generated from his burst. Because of how his mechanics work, it is semi-similar to Alhaitham, and for energy generation, he wants to be pressing E twice. Which is very nice because a lot of his teams want to work around longer rotations anyway. Because of units such as Fischl, or Kazuha, or Yelan, or... not Yelan. Technically Yelan, we'll get to it. Aurora as a shielder option. There are good reasons to want to do longer rotations with him. He will be looking at either 2 or 3 charge attacks per rotation. When you're doing 2 charge attacks per rotation, you're looking basically at a rotation length of 24 seconds. When you're doing 3, you're looking at 28, 27. Sometimes it can be less if you have units that don't really take field time, such as Nahida or Hyperloom Trigger Raiden. Now, you remember what we were talking about with Wriothesley? What if I told you Neuvillette is going to have an identical issue, but instead of a healer, he really wants a shielder, unless you have C1. You can now let out your applause. Oh boy. So when Neuvillette sucks up the balls and starts doing the charge attack, he is committed to that charge attack. You cannot swap off in the middle of the charge attack. If you dash, the charge attack ends. If you get hit and staggered, the charge attack ends, you lost those balls. That is it. That charge attack is over. What his C1 does, besides being a 20% damage increase, if it gives him the extra stack, is make him immune to being staggered during his charge attack, which is quite nice. However, that doesn't fully alleviate his problems. He has fairly low defense, and over the course of his charge attack, he is going to be draining 48% of his HP, so he will always be ending his charge attack at 50% HP. When he starts to do the charge attack, he recovers that 48% of his health back, which is nice. It is still very possible for him to get one shot at the end of each charge attack. Keep that in mind. C1's not going to fix that. It can happen. It will happen. Regarding C0, in terms of shieldless gameplay difficulty, I'm hoping it is similar to Wanderer. If it is more difficult than Wanderer because of his complete lack of iframe capability, at least Wanderer has a dash, it'll be a little bit problematic. I'm hoping to be able to play him in shieldless teams with a bit of effort. We'll see what happens. And no, the excuse that he's a ranged character you can strafe, that's not a real excuse. Wanderer can do that. He's a ranged character. He literally has a dash that gives him iframes. People still say he needs shielded with Wanderer. So maybe keep that one in mind. Also, regarding his self-healing, it is neutral. Unless he has the source of healing bonus, he has the same amount coming in and going out. So now that we've talked about that, I can quickly talk about potential shielding options for him. The way that Neuvillette teams will work is he has a passive that encourages you to play multiple Hydro reactions in your team. If you do that, his charge attack gets stronger. However, resonances are very beneficial and are still worth running. Having cohesive teams is a lot more important than having the maximum buff on his charged attack. If you are playing Beto, you need a second Electro. Hydro Resonance is very good for him. 25% HP, he does directly HP scaling damage, so obviously it's very good. There are also Hydro characters that have beneficial passives for him, besides just generating energy. Yelan's A4, Adapt with Ease, is very good. For reference, it is roughly the same as if you were playing Mona. Yelan is arguably more difficult to use in that slot, but she's also better. Just kind of straight up. Yelan generates more energy. Yelan gives a similar amount of damage percent. Yelan does more damage. But a lot of people will gravitate towards Mona just because she's easy. And she's also much less contested. Regarding shields, while there is no Hydro Shielder, there is Jingcho, who gives interruption resistance and a little bit of HP regen, and Hydro Red Shred, which make him technically a fairly good partner. If you're dedicated to no Shielder in Neuvillette, I actually encourage Jingcho. And then regarding shielders, there is Zhongli. His passive does count Hydro Crystallize. The problem with Hydro Crystallize is if the enemy is under Electrocharged, so if you're playing Fischl, you are not generating a Hydro Crystallize. You're generating an Electrocrystallize. So it is more than possible to simply never get a Hydro Crystallize if you are playing Zhongli in an Electrocharged team. Kind of just, you're gonna have to deal with it. There's not really a better option. You can cope your way into Laylo or Diona just to ensure you get the stack. I don't think it's worth it. If you are playing Hyperbloom teams, you're gonna be looking at either Kirara or Zhongli as your shielder option, and potentially Baizhi. Hyperbloom trigger, it's either going to be Shinobu or Raiden. Those are literally the only characters that can proc Hyperbloom consistently off field. So it is what it is. That's what you're stuck with. That being said, people do underestimate the value of double Dendro in a lot of these Hyperbloom comps. I would like to point out that Kirara, especially if you have her at C6, genuinely not bad and realistically fairly competitive with Zhongli. Regarding Beto, don't play Beto without a second Electro character. That's literally playing Xiangling without a second Pyro character. It's a bad time. Don't even bother. Trust me when I tell you, it's not worth doing. Something I do need to mention, because I haven't mentioned it yet, is the rate in which Neuvillette applies Hydro. Despite the appearance of his gigantic Hydro laser beam, it applies very little Hydro. Over the 8 hits, it is applying Hydro 3 times. His elemental skill is applying Hydro once. His elemental burst is applying Hydro once, because the additional hits share ICD with the main hit. So if you are looking at his Hydro application for Hyperbloom, you are looking at, if you do 3 charge attacks per rotation, 12 Hyperblooms. Unless you leave normal attacks, in which case you can go up to 16, which is still kind of bad. So then the question is, why am I playing Neuvillette? For his damage. That's it. You're playing him because he's supposed to do damage. He has literally no off-field Hydro presence. He does not apply very much Hydro on field. He is really dependent on directly doing damage in his teams. Otherwise, you will be using someone like Ayado, who does have off-field Hydro, and while on-field applies a similar rate of Hydro as Neuvillette, except that's without counting Ayado's burst. But Neuvillette is supposed to do roughly double his damage, so that's cool. Is Jingcho better than Mona? Jingcho gives interruption resistance, Mona does not. It is not, is Jingcho better than Mona? It's, can I use Mona? You can't proc his Q. You can't proc his Q during the laser beam. You can weave N1s. You can also normal attack on your other characters. You do still get a number of hits from Jingcho Yelan, just not nearly as many as you do in every other team. And they still do enough damage to be useful, just because of a lack of options. Can't you adjust the rotation for consistent Hydro Crystallize? If you don't care about Archaic Petra, yeah. But I would also maybe mention the way most people play Zhongli is not Crystallize. Unless I am mistaken, the way people play Zhongli is they grab Zhongli at the start of the chamber, they put this down, and then they play their other characters. This gives you no Hydro Crystallize unless the pillar ticks, very coincidentally, while there is only Hydro on the enemy. Will Xingqiu or Beidou IR be enough? It's a bit of a loaded question. If you're talking about Beidou, you're specifically playing a no-healer team. You also won't have Hydro Resonance, so it'll have less HP. The HP coming in and going out for Neuvillette on release is net neutral. He drains 48, he gains 48. So any damage you sustain will still be damage you've sustained. And he technically has an incentive to be over 50% HP for his A4. That being said, Beidou's interruption resistance might be enough. Xingqiu gives higher interruption resistance than Beidou, so Xingqiu is much more likely to be enough. You are still dealing with not having a healer in your teams, and you're still dealing with, in the case of Beidou, a gigantic team building issue. Most likely thinking Neuvillette is designed to be paired with Furina. See what makes you think so? If you want to know more about my thoughts on Furina, I just uploaded a video on YouTube where I speculate about Furina based on all of the leaks information we have about gearing and other characters. It is not tied to any existing leak about Furina. It is literally just from the in-game, like what we have in-game that she might synergize with. It's pretty interesting. I recommend you check it out. Oh, I need to mention Neuvillette weapon options. Tome of the Eternal Flow and Sacrificial Jade are by far the two best weapon options. Other than that, you're going to be looking at Lost Prayer, Prototype Amber, if not Ballad of the Boundless Blue, which is okay on him because he does in fact need ER to use his burst. But yeah, both Neuvillette and Wriothesley are really similar characters. They both seem substantially normal. Neuvillette not applying very much Hydro really balances out damage he could be doing. They both have very impactful C1s, both for damage and for survivability and quality of life. Just really, but yeah, like that. Yeah, that's Wriothesley.